Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. As after a festive break, match preview shows do return, and I'm pleased to say, making his second appearance of the season ahead of this week's home game against Fleetwood Town is Jack Kershaw. You can find him on X at JKAnalysis7. I strongly recommend that you go and give him a follow. His work is absolutely brilliant. He's getting better and better. So if you're not following, why not go and do it straight away? Jack, welcome back to the channel first and foremost. I hope you had a nice Christmas and a happy New Year to you.
Yeah, you too. And I'm happy that you've asked me to come back. And unfortunately, both sides, comparing from the start that we had, it's not really expected that both sides have really fall off as much as we did. And obviously, both changing manager, and it's going to be definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, because you rolled the dice. I think it was New Christmas Eve that Pete Wild, who'd done very well at Barrow previously, was appointed. So there's been 3 games under his management since then. But yeah, I think it's always a good place to start his recent form. So we'll quickly go through the Gills. It's 7 points from 18 for the Gills, and that was 3 games unbeaten, which included 2 wins against Salford and MK Dons and a decent draw in an open game against Cheltenham. Yes, I did say Gillingham were involved in an open game. But since then, it's been absolutely disgusting. 3 defeats to 0. Colchester by 2 on Boxing Day. Wimbledon beat us by a single goal just after that on the Monday. And then last Thursday, what proved to be Mark Bonner's final game in charge, an absolutely despicable 3-0 performance at home to Bromley. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to Bromley. It was just the way that we conceded the goals was just not good enough. And we currently sit 14th with 30 points from 23 games. In terms of Fleetwood, like we say, now managed by Pete Wild, but some of these games would have included Charlie Adams' management as well. So it's 5 points from 18, so even worse than us somehow. And that's come in the way of a good win against Chesterfield, creditable draws against Accrington and Harrogate, but 3 defeats against Swindon, Barrow, and most recently Doncaster Rovers. So Town currently sitting 16th with 27 points from 22 games. Is it fair to say, Jack, that the change had to be made? It was 1 win in 11 in League Two before Pete Wild was announced just before Christmas. Charlie Adam obviously was the man that got the boot after a fairly encouraging time in charge up until the last couple of months. I think we spoke in August and you said he'd done a decent job at the back end of the relegation season. And there were certainly signs for optimism back in August when we played out a very dull 0-0 draw. So I've got 2 questions. Number 1, was it the correct decision? And number 2, how happy are you with Pete Wild?
I think at the end it was the right decision because ultimately he's then losing the fan base. And I've said this numerous times when obviously he got appointed, people weren't really happy, ex-Blackpool. And I think, people had then reminded themselves that he's ex-Blackpool. I didn't have a problem with it. It was 13, 14 years ago. He's managing Fleetwood now and he was dedicated to the job. And it's not like he didn't give his all because I think he did. It's just he was too stubborn in the way he went. He came out in press conferences and said, changes will happen and changes needs to be made. They weren't. It was just the same playing style. I won't complain about the same 11 because our squad depth, really, you can't really change much about it. But it was just the same playing style and there was nothing to be excited about when we were playing. So I think, it came at probably... it was a good judgment from the ball because the game against Barrow, which was his last 2-0, the fans really weren't happy going to the front and he clapped, he patted his heart and then he put his hand up. I sort of knew it might have been his goodbye and then so now we have got Pete Wild and to your second question, yes, I'm very happy with it and at the point of him being announced on Christmas Eve, everyone was saying, Fleetwood got a great manager there. He did great things with Barrow after 2 sort of relegation battles with Barrow. He then came in on that 3rd season and then got him, I think, 8th and also 9th. So far he's come in, he said that Highbury needs to be a fortress again. We want to get in people's faces and, we want to make us hard to beat and work hard, which I think it gives something different, Charlie Adam. You feel that Pete Wild, there's no one else who has a bigger love for the game than him and that he gets really stuck in. The 2 games he's took in charge, he's done a huddle before the game, which Fleetwood fans have never seen before, really. Okay. Just getting the lads who have warmed up, obviously the 18, get them in a huddle, obviously do his speech and clap the fans, and then Fleetwood fans just credit that because it's a manager who wants to get the group tight together. Charlie Adams said that, but when you're seeing it on the pitch and you really want that man management to really show, Pete Wild's done it so far.
Was it only 2 games in charge? Because obviously I was looking at the date, so I thought Chesterfield was his first game, or was that he's still just in the stands for that one then?
Yeah, that was actually our interim manager, and he said that Pete Wild actually didn't have much to do with that. So I think it was pretty impressive that our interim manager just let the boys play against a good Chesterfield side.
Which has ruined me bigging up Pete Wild a little bit, unfortunately. But such is life. But then we say there was a draw in his first game, which is something to build on. Like you say, it's new ideas and new ways of playing. So to get the win against a decent enough Chesterfield side was encouraging, while Pete sort of got his feet under the table. And then also you literally seconds away from getting up a decent point at Doncaster in your last game. I think it was like 90+4 or something, which must have been really frustrating. But at the same time, you must have been encouraged by what you saw in terms of the performance.
Yeah, definitely, and we conceded 2 goals by just both our wing backs not really tracking the man, and one of the wing backs, Carl Johnson, we actually sold for a fee, and now we've got Sean Rooney in, who's come back to the club, and he's 6'2". He has height and physicality, which in that moment Johnston got really bullied off the ball by Billy Sharp, and Billy Sharp obviously. He's got that sort of aggressive nature to him, but if you're sort of the same height, you sort of want your defensive fullback to try and give him more of a battle than what Johnson did. So, yeah, I weren't too displeased because obviously we should have got a point out of it, but we can again see the sort of play style that Pete Wild's trying to embed in the system, and I think it works. And so far, we've actually had 2 sort of different games. Harrogate, direct side, physical, want to latch onto second and third balls, and then Doncaster, a possession-based side. So we've had sort of the perfect kind of blend between them 2 matches to see how Wild might adapt against, a side who wants to dominate and then a side who don't want to dominate. And I think I posted that our game against Harrogate, which was Wild's first game, it was actually our highest. It was our second highest expected goals in a match in a season so far, and that was his first game. So you could really feel the attacking intent that Wild has tried to obviously implement so far.
Yeah, I think we need something similar. I know John Coleman's just done his first interview on Sunday evening or Monday evening and has said all the right things, but I've supported Gillingham long enough to know that saying and doing is 2 different things. And you've already alluded to it with Charlie Adam. It's one thing saying what you're going to do, and then it's an entirely different thing actually showing enough to actually go and do it. And like I say, there's a lot of parallels this season, it seems, between Fleetwood and Gillingham. We probably both don't score enough. Both started off really well, like you say. Everyone sort of, when the sun was still shining, was really encouraged by both teams. That seems like a distant memory now, unfortunately. Another similarity is a lack of a very high goal scoring attacking player. If you look at Gillingham, I think our top 2 in terms of goals and assists is Jaden Clark, who's got 9, that's 7 goals, 2 assists, and Robbie McKenzie, who's a defensive midfielder or a fullback by trade. He's got 4 goals, 2 assists. It's not too different. You've got Ryan Graydon, who's got 3 goals and 6 assists, and Ronan Coughlin, who's got 6 goals, 2 assists. So it's something that both teams clearly have to work on. It's something that Wild and John Coleman are going to have to improve vastly if we want to have more enjoyable second halves to the season as a bare minimum. I mean, there's still a lot of football to be played, but I think if you sat here and asked 100 fans of League Two and they said, "Are Gillingham and Fleetwood going to get in the playoffs?" I think the majority would say no. At this point, we're going to have to be much improved. But has that been an issue, or is there more sort of more glowing problems that have cost you in terms of your form over the last 2 or 3 months?
No, I'd say that is a bit of an issue. Ronan Coughlin, we know, can score the goals. He scored about 25 in the League of Ireland. I know, it's a second division in Ireland and coming over to League Two, but obviously, but like Andy Woodman said about Michael Cheek, a goal scorer's going to score goals. You just got to give him service, and he's going to be there no matter what division they're in. And unfortunately, Coughlin, he's like a 1 in 6, and it's frustrating because we know we've got that bagsman if we can play. If we can give him service, and sometimes we give him enough service. He's had many shots this season, and he's only scored 6 goals. Ryan Graydon isn't our goal scorer that we want. He's more a creative, drops deep. He's got a bit of a more complete profile about him than Coughlin. And we got Keane Harrott on a permanent till the end of the season, which is bizarre to me, really. We had him on loan, now we made it a permanent, but just to the end of the season. So, yeah, us Fleetwood
Essentially
fans
still alone, isn't it? But he just
yeah,
belongs to
exactly.
you.
Yeah, well, the website crashed, so I'm thinking, oh, great, he's on a permanent. And then when people are saying that it's to the end of the season, I'm thinking, what's the point? But anyway, when Keane Harrott's started, I've been impressed with him. But unfortunately, under Adam, he didn't get as much game time. He's a presser. He works hard, and I think he's about 5'10". He's not over 6 foot, and he actually uses his body pretty well. He's a physical striker. And I think if you give him service and hopefully he can go on a run, he scored a rocket against Chesterfield on Boxing Day. And you're thinking, where's that come from? It's just that bit of confidence that you need from him. And yeah, that's our only 3 strikers at the club currently. We want to recruit for a centre forward in January. Had a big body in there. And I think our biggest goal threat's actually been Matty Virtue, a midfielder similar to when Robbie McKenzie was playing at the first half of the season. As sort of that midfielder, and we sort of knew that Virtue could chip in with the goals. With his Lincoln 2022-23 season, he got 4, but then in that box-to-box role, I think that he's got more license to shoot rather than our 10 on the other side, Danny Mayer, who always looks to create and never pulls the trigger, which really frustrates me. But Virtue will take it in his stride. He'll make them runs into the box, and he will shoot a lot, but he has been pretty accurate. And obviously, our joint top goal scorer, we can't really complain. We just need the output from our strikers.
Another parallel. I think we've got 5 strikers on the books. Elliot Nevitt's got 2 in all competitions, and then you've got Jacob Wakelin, Ollie Hawkins, Marcus Wiley, and Josh Andrews have all got 1 each, and it's the 8th of January, so it tells you its own problems. But yeah, Jaden Clark's been one of the big finds of the season. I don't know if you remember, he's the lad that missed a really good chance at your place when he pitched it off his centre half and then had a heavy touch trying to go round the keeper or try and place it round him. But since then, I think he scored 2 the week after actually, and he's gone from strength to strength. Been really, really good, which is great to see because he come out of, I think, National League South a couple of winters ago in the winter. So nice to see someone come out of non-league and impress. But we certainly need more than what we've got. There were 2 people I was really interested in looking at when we came to your place back in August. Obviously, one was Zach Medley because he'd been on loan at Gillingham a few seasons ago, and unfortunately, Zach picked up I think what was a season-ending injury at the time.
Yeah.
And, ruptured his Achilles or something fairly serious. The other one is Brendan Wiradu, and looking at sort of sofa score and that type of thing, and FOTMOB average rating over 7 in the league this season, seems to have been very consistent. I'd certainly say as an outsider looking in that you're a better side when Wiradu's playing. I was very impressed with him that game back in the summer when he had to go and play as the left side centre half after Medley went off. It didn't seem to stop him from stepping into midfield and trying to create things and create overloads and get you playing. How important was him? Sorry, how pertinent was him missing 2 months through November and December? Is it just a massive coincidence, or did that have essentially a fairly big part in the role of Charlie Adam unfortunately being sacked because you are fundamentally not as good a side without Wirra doing it?
Yeah, I think that did have a part to play in that. He actually said because he got sacked after the game with Barrow, he said that, we are missing players, and Charlie Adam never blamed that. But when we had Elliot Bonds out, our main 6, Virtue goes there, but he's more of an 8, and that's our joint top goal scorer, put in a defensive midfielder position. We had Johnston, who we've just sold, but he was out. Then we had Wiradu, and I completely agree. We aren't, because of our backups. I'm not trying to come out here and say our backups are bad, because at the start of the season we had 7 centre halves, and I was really confident about the depth. But like I say, Medley's got a season injury, and so did Harrison Holgate. That's two defenders which Medley would be our probably second best. I think Holgate would be our fourth best. And we've had James Bolton, a leader, but he sort of hasn't coped well because he's had Finley Potter on the left-hand side with him, and then Liam Shaw, who we sold on in January. He's not really a centre-back. He's more of a box-to-box midfielder. So when you're sort of having players out of position, and when Bonds was actually fit and available when Wirradit was out, he actually filled in at centre half. So it was sort of misprofiling players. And yeah, and also Wirradit still sort of had to play at left centre back sometimes because we haven't got that natural left footer except from Finley Potter. But at times, because he's a young lad, I think he's 2021, he's not the best physically. So I think when we've had definitely when we got beat by Doncaster 4-2, they put Joe Ironside on Finley Potter, and it didn't end well. I think Joe Ironside got a goal, but he certainly contributed more to that, winning the flick-ons. And as well as, stepping up into midfield, that Wodo can do, he can certainly do the defensive work and just the nitty-gritty stuff which we need. And I think now, because obviously we came back on Boxing Day, which was his first game back, he only managed 71 minutes. Then Harrogate, the game after 66 minutes. Then Doncaster, 75 minutes, sort of managing his time now. But because we got our game cancelled as well on Sunday, that's hopefully got him a week back in training. So hopefully now he's at full fitness, can do the full 90 minutes at your place. And he's definitely our best player. And thankfully, there's no transfer rumours coming in this window about him. So, yeah.
That was my next question. Was the big concern now keeping him before the end of the window? But we'll keep it quiet. Wirradoo's not very good. I hope he's not very good on Saturday.
I don't.
Well, then you might have to sell him if he's good. So it's, rock and hard place for you, isn't it? So, but no, certainly one that I've been impressed with as an outsider looking in all season. Certainly in a side that's been struggling for form as well. I think if you see people that stand out in teams that aren't playing great, I think it sort of enhances their reputation even more than if you look at players that are playing in teams that are playing well all the time. One final question before we get on to the immediacy of Saturday afternoon, and that's, what are the aspirations now for the second half of the season? Because, like we've already said, there's a lot of football to play. Like, it's 50% of the season gone. There's still loads of points. Do you think that, similar to us, playoffs are now probably a bit out of reach? Or does the open nature of this division, where everybody seems to beat everybody, mean that any type of run gets you back into contention?
I mean, like you said, it's an open-ended league, and honestly, I've never seen anything like this. But unfortunately, I don't think playoffs is going to be achievable. And I think as a club, that we wanted to go back up to League One, but ultimately, keeping a squad of sort of 21, 22, then we had the big injuries. It's just sort of not helped us one bit. And January, we haven't, we signed two players this summer. One was already at the club and one just come back to sort of a like-to-like replacement. So we sort of not got that squad depth that we need because we've loaned a striker out, we sold a right back, and then we sold a midfielder. So there's plenty of work to be done. We still got 4 loans to use. I hope we don't have them 4 loans to use all of them up, because last season we did and it was a complete mess. And ultimately that's why we got relegated. Panic signings and loans that obviously weren't good enough. But yeah, I just think mid-table now, and for Wild to implement his style, do what he needs to do, and summer recruit for him, because I think this window would have been interrupted. Our recruitment staff trying to get players for Charlie Adam. Then a new manager comes in on Christmas Eve. You're already turning it around, and sort of are you recruiting for a new manager now, or are you trying to keep an eye on the same players that you were sort of keep an eye on before? But then there's the trouble that the manager thinks, well, I don't want him in my side. So it's going to be an interesting window, but yeah, we're just going to be mid-table. We're not going to be threatened by relegation, even though we're only 7 points off. We've got games in hand. We've got about 2 or 3, but I've got to stop saying that because every time I say we've got games now, we don't do anything with it. We always drop points, so we don't get 3 points. But yeah, I think sort of security in mid-table, and Wild's already said that next season we need to get this club back into League One and aim high.
But it's almost like using it as a hugely extended pre-season for next season, then just to get an idea of how Pete Wild wants to play and who of the existing squad fits into that style and wants to buy into it, and then get excited in the summer, I suppose. Gills could be completely the same way. Obviously, ours is an interim manager, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But we're in the same situation, Jack, in that I think there's a couple of loans that have been mentioned were sort of agreed for Mark Bonner, and now we've got to wait to see whether John Coleman wants to sign them off. And there's been a little bit of a joke on social media because he said in his press conference that he'd been doing a bit of work for recruiting for Chesterfield. So, of course, a few days ago, it got rumoured that Chesterfield were signing Deepo Akinyemi from York City, who'd been linked to us previously.
Yeah.
And John Coleman said that, and then it come out the day after that move's collapsed. So a lot of our fans are like, is he coming to Gills? I laughed and said to someone in our WhatsApp chat and said, well, he scores goals, he's got pace and he's got power. So no, we definitely won't be signing him because that's everything we need in a footballer. But it's just a crazy time, isn't it? And it's exciting, but also it's a little bit of a pain in the arse because you spend a month sort of not really knowing what's going on. I think once you get to February the 1st, everything settles down again and you can get to work and you know what you're doing for the remainder of the season. Final bit is obviously team news. In terms of Gills, there's been a load of photos have been put up because we've got a new manager in, so we're getting like the sort of pre-season photos of the training ground. It looks like only Connor Masterson's going to be missing or unavailable for selection. He's done a hamstring, it looks like. But I've got no idea what our team would be in terms of what Accrington used to do. It was 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1, but I don't know what route John's going to go, so I'm not going to try and pick a side. You're in a similar boat again because you had a game postponed, but I'm guessing you're not going to make loads of changes because the performance, as you've already said, was decent against a good Doncaster side. So I'd imagine you're going to be surely as close to that 11 if they're all available.
Yeah, I think probably just 2 changes will be the 2 players that have departed already, to be honest.
Oh, so they started in that game, so they have to come out, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I think it'll be Lynch because David Harrington, unfortunately, is out for 3 months, I think, which is a massive blow for Harrington. I think he was out for 18 months prior, joining the club from League of Ireland. He started the season so well, actually attracted interest from Swansea and Huddersfield, and then he's now injured for 3 months, unfortunately. But Lynch, I've not been his massive fan. He's not the tallest goalkeeper. He actually got an assist against Chesterfield. Everyone in the stands were like, he's come on for about 12 minutes and he's already got an assist.
Put him up front.
Yeah. Harrogate, even though he conceded, he made some important saves. And I think I'm not too bothered about Lynch coming in because, like I say, we're not battling now. We just need security. And if it's Lynch, it's Lynch. We just got to support him and hopefully, he can gain confidence. And the back 3 that I think will be the same, Bennett, Bolton and Wiradoo. Bonds is sort of the 6. Patterson is wing back, then Sean Rooney is the other wing back, and then Mayer is the 10, Virtue is the box to box, and I think he should be going for Harrott and Graydon up top, but I'm not too. He's going to be Graydon anyway because he never gets dropped. It's just either Harrott or Coughlin starts.
Interesting to see then. Yes, am I right in thinking it's pretty much the same system that Charlie Adam was using, isn't it? It's almost like a 3. Yeah. And then you have sort of 3 in front of each other there with your wing backs and then your 2 centre forwards. Like you said, you labelled it a 6, an 8 and a 10. So they're almost queued up in front of each other, single file. But we all understand it's more flexible and a bit more fluid than that. Yeah. Again, just to reiterate the point, I've got no idea what we're going to look like. I don't know whether John Coleman's going to go with big people because I remember his Accrington side a few seasons ago had a bloke at right back who was about 6'8". I've never seen anything like it in my life. So I'm not going to try and pick a team. So final question before I let you go is obviously the dreaded score prediction.
I'm going to go 2-2. What about you?
I've written down manager bounce ? Have you had yours? Are you still having yours? The don't think you've won away in the league for a couple of months, so that helps us out.
Mm.
But we're the type of team recently, albeit under Mark Bonner, that plays against teams that are on them type of horrific runs and just gives them points. I've written down 2-1 to Gills, but that's more in hope than expectation, I think, because I purely because I've got nothing to go on, Jack. I don't know how we're going to set up. I don't know whether we're going to go direct into front players and play from there. I don't know whether John Coleman wants us to get it down and play. So I've got literally nothing to work with. So I'm just going with the fact that hopefully we might score a couple of goals, which would be great to start with, and hopefully we'll pick up 3 points. But 2-2 seems about fair. It's two sides that are, not in great form. So a draw probably seems the most sensible.
Do you think that, actually, I'm just looking at it, do you think there could be 2 nailed on starters, Andrews and Nolan? He had them both at Accrington, Andrews first half of the season, and then obviously Nolan had the good output last season, and he just needs to sort of kick on. And as obviously Coleman managed him last season, he got terrific numbers. Hopefully, can get him back to his best. Not on Saturday, hopefully, just to the rest of the season.
I'm genuinely not sure because, like you say, Jack Nolan's numbers are woeful compared to what we saw last season. He's been accused of being uninterested, doesn't work hard enough without the ball. Josh Andrews, again, it's question marks. He started the last game, but he's been injured for pretty much the entire time he's been with us. He got a whack in the face after about 10 seconds, had to go off, get treatment for a mouth injury. Then he had his head bandaged up. Then he got whacked again. So I don't know how fit he is. So I get why you're asking because they both played under Coleman and done relatively well for John Coleman, but I don't know where they are in terms of either fitness or what he wants to play. Because I think if John wants to play a 4-4-2, would I trust Jack Nolan out of position? Probably not in current form. But then John might go, well, look, you know what Jack Nolan you can be because you've done it under me. So I'm going to trust you and give you some confidence straight away. So not committing is the short answer. Jack, as always, mate, it's been a real pleasure. Enjoy chatting football to you. So I appreciate you coming on again. Understand you can't get down because you've got revising to do.
Yeah, unfortunately.
A long time ago since I had to do that type of thing. Like I've said, Gills fans and Fleetwood fans, if you are watching at this point, then thank you very much. Please keep hitting that like button and please consider hitting subscribe. As I say every time, it is free to do so and it really helps me out. Thank you for the huge response to the reaction video after Mark Bonner was sacked. Over 3,000 views, which is absolutely staggering. So thank you for listening to me waffling on. I do appreciate it. It's myself and Ava back on Saturday afternoon. No Boz or Stocky this weekend. They are going to Milan to watch football instead. So they're probably winning, but I'm hoping they're going to miss a good Gills performance. But like I say, we will be back at the Priestfield for a match day live. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week. And more importantly, up the Gills.